A new book documents Citygarden. We'll have that story next on City Corner. I'm Steve Potter, and welcome to City Corner. A few years ago, the St. Louis Gateway Foundation transformed a couple of blocks downtown into Citygarden, and now a new book documents that whole experience. I'd like you to meet this morning Robert Duffy, who is a St. Louis journalist, and also with us today is Paul Wagman, who represents the Gateway Foundation. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you,
Steve.
Paul, let me start with you.
Sure.
For those that aren't familiar with the Gateway Foundation, it's a nonprofit in St. Louis. Basically, what do they do?
Well, the Gateway Foundation has been around for 30 years, and it has been doing several things, but the thing for which it's most famous now is for installing public art, public sculpture in a number of locations around St. Louis, the city of St. Louis and St. Louis County. Its most famous effort is, of course, Citygarden downtown, which contains 23 fabulous sculptures by some of the greatest sculptors in the world, living and dead. But it's also installed 30 other pieces of sculpture in the city and in St. Louis County, which people may not be as familiar with because they're scattered around the region. Mm-hmm. And so this new book, Please Touch, contains photographs of all of these pieces and tells readers where to find them.
And Please Touch has an interesting meaning to it. We'll get to that in just a second.
Sure.
Bob, you've been a journalist in St. Louis for a long time. I worked with you for a while at St. Louis Public Radio. Before that,
right,
with the Beacon, but I guess for many years it was the St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
Right. It was.
Do you have a
32.
particular beat, did you?
What?
Did you have a particular beat?
I did everything except sports. I think I wrote one story for sports about Ted Simmons' collection of porcelain. But
I'd like to read that.
I'll see if you can find it. I don't know. But I did. I wrote a lot about architecture and painting and sculpture, and had a great career there.
And Paul, actually, you guys go back.
Yeah,
you
Bob
guys worked together a long time
right.
ago.
That's right. I was, for many years, a reporter at the Post-Dispatch. I was a news reporter, not covering art. So Bob and I had completely divergent assignments.
Did you ever write about porcelain? Or?
I never wrote about porcelain.
But he did. He was a fabulous feature. I mean, he's understating what he did. News is the great thing that fuels and drives our business. But he also wrote wonderful features.
Thank you, Bob.
He got in the door to talk to Tennessee Williams' mother, and I think she kept him there for a while. But it was a wonderful story and very, very poignant and revealing.
Oh, that's really interesting. But in real life these days, you work for Fleischman.
I do. I'm now a senior vice president and partner at Fleischman-Hillard, and it's in that capacity that I represent the Gateway Foundation.
So, did you get involved with the Gateway Foundation because of, were you assigned to do it, or is it something that really interested you for a specific reason?
Steve, that's actually a very interesting question. What happened was that, the Gateway Foundation has been media shy. The reason probably most of your listeners are not aware of it is that it's deliberately flown under the radar all these years.
Deliberately?
Deliberately. The philosophy of the Gateway Foundation has been that the more you try to gain attention for yourself, the less you get done. The more you try to take credit, the less you get done. So it historically had no communications effort. However, when the foundation took on the construction of Citygarden, covering 2 full blocks downtown and creating a major new attraction in St. Louis, it realized that it would have to communicate with the public about this. And so the foundation looked around for a firm that could help it in that regard. And amusingly, in its reluctance to do so, they hired us, and I became the point man, and then had the great pleasure of working with Peter Fisher, the late chairman of the foundation, for many years, and with his staff. Peter, although reluctant, I'm proud to say that Peter, although very reluctant initially to bring us on, eventually became a good friend. He was a great guy.
Well, somebody's done a good job because
Thank you.
I think all this work has certainly paid off. Robert, you wrote a lengthy piece in here about public art. What's your relationship with Citygarden and this whole project?
Well, my relationship with Citygarden came about because of my interest in public art, public sculpture, of long standing. I've written about a number of things, but everything from there was a wonderful growing sculpture up by Union Station that some parks director decided should not be there, and she had it just plowed down. It was a long time ago, so I wrote about that.
Would I remember what that was?
I doubt it. I don't think you were born. But, and I wrote about Laumeier Park from the very beginning, when Adam Aronson and Ernie Trovell were out there tromping around figuring out where they'd put things, and scandals involving Laumeier Park, and sculptures at the St. Louis Art Museum that got stolen, and 2 consecutive burglaries. And so I've been doing this one way or another, both from the really purely formal aesthetic side of it to the news of art, which I would say sadly is lacking right now in St. Louis.
The news of art is?
Yeah,
You mean the reporting of art?
Right, and the writing about the work itself. It's just there's somebody has decided it isn't thrilling, and so they don't do anything about it. But anyway, this Citygarden gave me sort of a reason for being for a while, because it was so fascinating to see that this really professionally reticent man would come out and do something so unusual and so good, and he paid for the Gateway Foundation paid for the whole thing. That was the deal with the city. We'll do it if you'll leave us alone. And it was a.
So the city donated the land, and the rest was on the foundation.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Correct.
What was the price tag on that?
Huge. I mean.
Well, they wouldn't. We're not allowed to say,
Yeah.
but it was. I will say that it was in the tens of millions of dollars. Tens of millions.
Well, the art's incredible, and because they're not just any artists. I mean, these are artists
Right.
of note. Can
Right.
you talk a little in general about? You said there was 25 pieces approximately.
There are
Who these artists are?
Sure.
I mean, not to name them individually, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, there are 23 in Citygarden, and then 30 more around the region, and I mean they represent some of the great sculptors of the 20th century. Some no longer with us, and some still living. I mean, at Citygarden, for example, there's a reclining nude in that reflecting pond right outside the Terrace Cafe. That's a piece by an artist named Maristide Mayol. It's one of only 3 in the world. One is at the Museum of Modern Art, I believe, in New York. One in Paris, and the third one's here. There's a great Fernand Léger piece also at Citygarden.
Actually, now at the airport.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's on loan to the airport.
Yeah, yeah. It shows, I think it's called Woman with Parrot.
Yeah.
There are, there's a great range of pieces. I mean, there's wonderful abstract art. There's art.
Keith Haring is represented.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I really enjoyed his. I like his ringed figure is his piece. Yeah. There are abstract pieces. There are pieces that are very appealing to children. There are those.
I'd say there's
rabbits.
a lot of whimsical stuff. And I mean
Exactly.
that in the best way.
Absolutely, and there's something for everyone. And the whimsy is definitely a reflection. Bob became very good friends with Peter too, and he can support me in this. I mean, that is a reflection in part of Peter's personality. Peter had a great sense of humor, a great sense of whimsy.
To talk about that, Bob, and was Peter responsible? I mean, who chose all these different? Who was responsible?
Well, he had a committee, and he was not like someone who would just go out and say, "Oh, I think that's great.
Correct.
I'm going to
No,
buy
no,
it."
all pieces are chosen by unanimous vote of the board.
Of the board.
Yes, yes. So,
But it was really his genius that was driving this. I mean, he over the years really, in a self-taught way, although he was brilliantly educated, but he came to have an intuitive sense of what was good, what mattered, how it would look in the sculpture
How it all
garden,
fits together.
how it fits together, or how it builds up an important body of work. And it was old 20th century masters and new people coming along. I mean, there were. I remember when he bought the. I think it's called the pink suit. This
a big suit, I think.
big
it's
suit.
Mm-hmm.
It's a marvelous and ironic piece that shows us this pink, very Brooks Brothers looking suit, standing quite tall, but empty, and that was the metaphor of the
Right.
emptiness of.
And it's on a pedestal, which makes it all the more hilarious.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
there's this pretension to it. It's overlooking Citygarden. It was the last piece installed in Citygarden.
Yeah.
When we come back from the break, we've got a few images of some of the artwork in Citygarden. We want to take a look at that and talk about that and continue our discussion about maybe a little bit more about what public art really is and how it fits in and why it's important.
Sure.
We can talk about that.
Sure.
And who knows what else will come up.
Who knows?
We'll be back more about Citygarden right after this.
Kids will spend 15 minutes watching online videos like this one.
Brushing for 2 minutes now can save your child from severe tooth pain later. 2 minutes twice a day. They have the time.
Experience St. Louis.
Hi, I'm Steve Potter. Welcome back to City Corner. We're talking about the new book, Please Touch. It's put out by the Gateway Foundation, and it documents Citygarden in downtown St. Louis. Paul Wagman is here representing the Gateway Foundation on the far end. Robert Duffy is a St. Louis journalist who's contributed his words and I guess thoughts to the book. Did you do
Right.
more than just write the chapter in here, Bob?
Did I do more in relation to the book?
Uh-huh.
Not really. I had ideas about what I thought the book should be about, and I think that I was striving to write the essay that would start it with, talking about in general about public art and what it can mean to a city.
So
And-
Citygarden is a couple blocks of public art, beautiful public art in downtown St. Louis.
And plantings
And
and water features.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up because that was on my list to ask you about. One of the most striking things when you're looking at the pictures, or when you're there for that matter, is not just the art, but what's around it, the landscaping, and it just fits perfectly. And I can tell a lot of effort and talent was used to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, the landscaping really deserves significant mention. The Gateway Foundation hired a firm that at the time was not all that well known. It's called Nelson Bird Woltz out of Charlottesville, Virginia. They were one of many firms that the Gateway Foundation interviewed, but the foundation felt that Nelson Bird Woltz really got what they were trying to do, and they did a fabulous job, and they've won national awards for what they've done at Citygarden.
And you'll notice this in some of the pictures we're going to share with our viewers in a moment. You'll see some of the landscaping here and there and be able to appreciate it. Why don't we look at a few of the images from the book? Let's start with 3 images from the book, and you guys can tell me what you think about them or what you know about them.
Well, I'll start, Steve. That's a piece called Backflip by an artist named Alan Jones, and it's at Big Bend and Lockwood.
So this is not in Citygarden. This is another
Correct.
piece.
This is one of the 30
Foundation.
pieces that are not in Citygarden that are also pictured in Please Touch. Yeah. Alan Jones is a British artist. That piece is made of Corten steel. Just at that very prominent intersection of Lockwood and Big Bend by Webster University, there are, I believe, 2 other pieces at Webster University nearby.
It's great movement.
And the thing about it is, it while entirely original, it really makes reference to the work of Alexander Calder, who did big sculptures like this that had enormous presence, and even though this one doesn't move, there's a great vitality to it.
Let's go to the next one. That's a close-up of something.
It's a close-up of the hands of La Riviere at Citygarden, the piece by Aristide Maillol, who I mentioned in the piece before the break. I mean, just look at those hands. Look how beautiful those hands are. Yeah, the whole piece is magnificent.
I was just in New York at the Museum of Modern Art, and I looked out in the sculpture garden, and there she was.
Yeah.
What did you
it looks
say?
very classical.
Yeah.
3
3 in the world.
three of them.
Let's go to the next one.
Okay, well, there she is
There's a good
again.
shot of what the landscaping's
That's an overall
doing,
shot, right, of Citygarden. Yeah. I should mention that you see in the background there, you see the Civil Courts building, which, by the way, the Gateway Foundation has lit. That's another thing that they've done around town is light some of our
top of it
great
right there,
structures. Yeah, including the arch.
And also, an intruder in that photograph is a pink flamingo, which
You're
Peter Fisher, who paid and thought this whole thing up, planted around in the garden, and it brought it was a double whammy of whimsy. The thing that everybody thought was so entirely tacky at one point.
Exactly.
To be sort of this apathesis of it.
When my neighbors did it, I thought it was tacky.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and he's sort of undercutting in a way the whole. I mean, he's trying to make sure that everyone feels relaxed at
Right.
Citygarden, and it's really
Let's
smart
talk about
structure.
Peter Fisher just for a moment. People may not realize that he passed away at a ripe old age, I might say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What should we know about him?
Well, he came by philanthropy and sort of low-key civic involvement through his family. His father, Aaron Fisher, and his mother, Ruth? Teresa were very generous to the city, but you never really kind of knew it, although I think they were more sort of out there than Peter, and he inherited a lot of money and decided to go along with this. And he has passed that sense of noblesse oblige, if you will, onto his children, who are very active in the program as well. So it came about it as part of his legacy. And also another part of the legacy that people don't know too much about was that the house that he grew up in out off Litzinger Road was designed by the fella who brought the lamella roof to St. Louis, that wonderful structure that provided a clear span in the arena and other places around town. Gus Keitel designed his house, and it's extraordinarily beautiful and open, and with an unfussy sense of modernity that I think he translated then into this
Maybe
interesting.
that set the stage for what he was going to do artistically later in life.
Right.
Interesting.
And can I just
go
add
ahead.
one thing, and that is that Peter, one of his greatest passions was kind of a reverse passion, and that was to not toot his own horn. If people don't know his name, that's because that's the way he wanted it. He was not looking for credit or publicity. What he wanted to do was make a contribution. His mother, Bob mentioned his parents, his mother won the St. Louis Award for helping to start, I believe, the St. Louis Community College District. And so it was this was something in his family. And when the opportunity presented itself to create Citygarden, he saw his opportunity to do something significant for the city, and he did it right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
He and the foundation. Again, Peter may come from the grave to strangle me for giving him, for speaking about him for speaking about him at all, because he did like to, he liked to credit only the foundation rather than himself.
I'm glad you did it anyway.
But he followed his mother in winning that award.
Yes,
and we
that's
all
right.
said, oh, well, it's going to be like Bob Dylan. He'll never show up to receive the thing. But he did show up.
Just for that award. And it was only
award.
because his mother had won it.
Yeah. But on top of that, he really spoke truth to power.
Yes,
I
he
mean,
did.
He told St. Louis what it needed to do.
Let's look at some more images from the book. And
Sure.
I might want to say about him, he passed away, he was almost 90, wasn't he?
No, I think he was I think Peter might have been 83, if I remember right. Yeah. There's
Big Suit.
Yes, that's Big Suit by Erwin Wurm, a German artist. Bob was talking about that. I mean, that's empty, that's the original empty suit, you see right there, because it's hollow.
Let's go to the next one.
Man on Horse.
I like that one a lot.
It's a great one by one of the world's great artists, Fernando Botero. Yeah, that's at Wydown and Hanley. Bob can speak more to this. Perhaps this will get you started, Bob. But when that piece was first installed at Wydown and Hanley, it was, the people were some people were mystified and even hostile to it, but it soon became well accepted and admired.
Yeah, sort of a trademark now of Clayton.
Exactly. It's almost
but it's
a symbol of Clayton.
It's
one symbol.
It's at once amusing, but then on the other hand, it has to do with bloat and with and the way that the human figure's head is turned away, looking away with this. What I read is a very melancholy expression on its face.
In fact, there's something specifically written, I don't know if you wrote it or not, Bob, about this piece in the book. It talks about this piece
I
in
wrote
the
a
book.
lot about it.
Yeah. Let's go to the next
I
one.
like it. And it was very early.
Yeah, that is Tremonisha by John Henry. That's at the corner of I-44, I think, and Truman, or the intersection of 44 and Truman Parkway. An abstract piece.
I've always enjoyed that driving by the highway because that's the last place I expect. It's where the highways kind of converge just south of the arch.
Yeah.
And you're getting on one highway to the other on all these ramps.
Right.
And you just notice it's kind of in a hill in a wooded area. It's the neatest place.
So
to be.
you've got in the piece, you've got this convergence of forms and
Yeah, it's Lafayette and Truman Parkway. Yeah.
Let's go to the next one.
That's Untitled by Martin Puryear. And it's some people think it looks like a thimble. As you can see, it also functions as a bench. I like it because it's so airy. You know, it's like lattice made out of metal. Bob, what are your thoughts about that?
Another part of this work that's interesting is that Martin Puryear is African American and one of the great artists of the 20th century. I learned first about him in a show in Los Angeles where this gallery with it's huge and expansive, and the work was big and expansive. But it is, as Paul said, it's very open and airy, and you see through it, and it is inviting. The notion of being able to actually sit down on a work of art seems to have its own.
I'm glad that's a good segue for
special
what you said, sitting on a work of art, because the name of the book is Please Touch.
Right.
And because unlike, if you go to the St. Louis Art Museum, they will yell at you if you do that.
I certainly will. Yes,
So
and almost
explain-
any other museum.
explain
And
that.
that exactly captures the spirit of the way Peter Fisher and the Gateway Foundation want you to approach art. They want you to experience it. They want you not to be afraid of it. So they want you to interact with it, and if that includes touching, absolutely. And that goes for all of the pieces at Citygarden and around the community.
Paul, we'll have some contact information for Gateway Foundation in just a second, but what's the best way for someone to get a copy of this book? And it's absolutely, we've just seen a small sample of what's in there, but
Right.
the photographs are absolutely beautiful. So how do we get it?
Thank you for asking, Steve. It's available at several local bookstores. It's available at Left Bank. It's available at Barnes & Noble, Ladue Crossing, at Subterranean Books in the University City Loop, and Amazon. And I should say that people can get it at a significant discount if they simply write an email to info@gateway-foundation.org.
So just we've got the contact there, just put
That's
info
right.
in front of it.
Exactly. Write an email and say, I want a copy of the book, and they'll tell you how to get it, and you will get it at a significant discount, plus the ever-popular Citygarden tote
We
bag.
just have a few seconds left, but each of you, just in a few seconds, does every city have a city garden? How special is Citygarden?
It's, as far as we know, and we of course have looked it up, it's the only one. I mean, many museums have a sculpture garden. There are places like Laumeier and Storm King that are sculpture gardens, but nothing plopped down in the middle of the city.
Right, and completely open, no tickets, no gates,
intentionally
yes.
to help revive the city, which it did.
I think it certainly has, and I have to stop you there. I wish I didn't have to. Thank you so much, both of you,
You're
for
welcome.
coming and sharing this whole idea. And if someone hasn't seen Citygarden, they need to get down there.
Go.
Open 24 hours a day, by the way. 7 days a week.
Absolutely.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
I'm
Thank
Steve
you,
Potter, and that's all the time we have for this edition of City Corner. Thanks for watching. See us next time. Bye-bye.